campus partners introduce themselves in a few minutes as well. But again, my name is Megan. I'm one of the student orientation coordinators for the orientation office, and I'm going to hand it off to my friend Michelle.
Hi, so I'm Michelle. I'm one of the other student orientation coordinators for the orientation office, and we're just really excited to have you here. I'm going to be more focused on the chat and answering questions in there that may not be as easy to answer in a conversation. And we just want to remind everyone that while everyone has tons of questions about COVID and what we're going to do, we don't have all of the answers yet because the university hasn't put out all the answers yet. So we'll try to answer your questions as best we can, but there may be questions that we just don't have the answers for. Hopefully we're hearing about those soon. So yeah, I'm going to pass this off to our friend Corey.
Hello, I'm Corey Foy. I work at Bridgewater State in the University Events Office. I assist the family programs with the logistics of their events on campus. I'm also a family member as I have two daughters, one that just graduated from BSU and one who's going into her junior year at BSU.
Great, thank you, Corey. How about we have Lee introduce himself?
Oh, Lee, you are
Gotta
mute.
unmute. Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Torda. I'm a faculty member in the English department here at Bridgewater State. This fall will be my 20th year teaching here at Bridgewater. I can't even believe it. I'm primarily responsible for teaching first year writing and coordinating that program, so I can answer a lot of questions about the first year experience. Welcome to you and your families.
And last but certainly not least, Jake, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name's Jake. I am a student at Bridgewater State University. I'm going into my senior year. I am a communications major with a concentration in public relations. Yeah, that's about it for anything interesting with me. But we're very excited to have you all here.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Corey. Thank you to our campus partners that have joined us. The purpose of this session is to help new families navigate their role from going from high school to college with their students and to provide support. As Corey mentioned, she is a faculty member, but she's also a mother of two BSU students. We have a BSU student here himself, so he can give you some advice about how he set expectations with his family members. And then we have a faculty member and an English professor from the English department, and she will be able to answer any questions as well. So you all are more than welcome to ask questions. If you're not comfortable, as Michelle said, to verbally say the question, you're more than welcome to chat it, and we'll reference that. Or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question to our campus partners. We ask, again, to kind of keep it to the singular theme of this session, but we're going to open it up. So does anybody have any questions for anyone to begin with? That's okay. So I'm going to actually ask some questions, and I'm going to send it over to Corey first. What are some expectations, Corey, that you put in place with your family, with your student? So like reporting grades and money budgets, like what were some expectations that you set in place so you and your student felt like you had a good goal?
Sure. So financially, it was important to talk to my daughters as they're a product of divorced parents. So it's going between her father and mother, who are not a unit family. So that was a little challenging at some times, and we worked it out where, the e-bill is a great resource on our student accounts page for financial aspect. And it took me a little while to understand it, even working at BSU, to read that student accounts e-bill. And what your student can do is let you be an authorized user on that as well. But it's just creating that expectation of how much they're going to have to come up with financially, what you're going to participate in financially, like books, anything else that's needed on campus, if they're going to be working on campus, if they're going to be working off campus, just keeping that line of communication open with your student as to how much you can physically or emotionally support with them for everything, financial and emotional support.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Leah, I'm going to go to you, and I don't know if you have any advice about if students have joined your office hours and they've wanted to get your advice about how do they can set up expectations regarding grades, what they receive in the classroom, and how they should approach that with their parents.
I'm so used to not clicking mute. Well, as you know, there's such a thing as FERPA. So one thing that's true is that when families occasionally call me for information about their student, I can't really say anything. I need to refer the parent back to the student, and that is what I always do. So I think it's a big change for a parent coming into this to imagine that they can just call the teacher and get information about a student. And that goes so far as even sort of reporting illnesses and things like that. That's really on the student, and you should encourage your student to do that work. And I think, you have to establish a relationship with your student where they can talk to you about their grades. And if your student is comfortable with it, you can arrange it so that they have access to their grades and access to their courses. A lot of that is managed online at Bridgewater. Even when we meet face-to-face, students participate in a program called Blackboard, which some faculty use. I do not, but many faculty use, and they input their grades into that. If a student feels comfortable enough, they can make an arrangement with the parent to be able to see that. But I think that even more than grades, it's important to talk to your student about how their experience is going. Are they talking to their faculty member? Are they going to office hours? Do they understand what an office hour is? I have a lot of students who don't really understand what that is, especially in the first year. Are they being proactive? There's so much help available to students on the Bridgewater campus. There's free tutoring in nearly every subject. There's a writing center if you need help with your writing. There's a communication center if you need help with public speaking. There's a math center that targets specific courses. So there's a lot of resources available. And a lot of students, they're not proactive about getting it because the thing about high school is that everything comes to you. So encouraging your student to reach out to faculty, encouraging your student to seek out the resources that are available, to sort of seek out extracurriculars or co-curriculars that can really enrich their lives. I think that is what a great college parent can do for their first-year student.
Thank you so much, Leah. I appreciate that. We got a question in the chat that said, is it mostly through email that students learn about all the resources available to them? So yes and no. Your students will receive an email every Wednesday called Student Announcements, and it brings up different areas on campus that are offering things that are going on. So organization and clubs post in there, but in their email, they'll get some updates. I'm going to actually pop it over to Jake and see what he thinks about that and any what's the best way that he knows how he gets resources on campus.
So one of the things I had to learn coming to college is how to be an advocate for yourself. So while the school definitely does work to kind of let you know what the resources are, through, like Megan said, the student announcements, there are some student announcements that come out every day at noon, and through other ways. But to be honest, a lot of the ways that I personally found out about different resources is by going and asking different people. So say I needed help in a class and I went to, as Lee mentioned, the Academic Achievement Center that has help for math, English, accounting and finance, and philosophy, and all these different aspects. I've gone and used those to get help with resources, and I've also asked people there. So say I needed help with that, and then I got my help there, and then I need help somewhere else, but I didn't know where to go. If you just ask people around the campus, people will help you find the answer if you don't have it too. So if I needed help with, say, student accounts, but I didn't know to go to student accounts for this problem, I could ask somebody else what my question was, and they could either point me in the direction if they don't have the answer, or they can kind of tell me who to get into contact with. So if you're just having open communication with different campus partners and different people on campus, that's definitely one way that I've kind of found different resources. I had a campus job my freshman year in university events, and my boss there, I had a question about how to pay for something, and like he, even though he doesn't work in the department, pointed me in the direction of who I should talk to. So definitely kind of networking and talking to people that are around is definitely how I did it.
Thank you, Jake. There was also a question in the chat. Are incoming freshmen getting those announcements now on their bridgew.edu account? Yes, they should be getting those emails if they have their Bridgewater email all set up. They'll be getting those emails. And that's also a great place for your student, and it's a great way to remind them that they should be checking that daily, as they will be getting updates about the university, anything related to orientation, res life and housing. So that's a great place to check once a day.
Can I add something really quick?
Absolutely.
The one piece of advice I give every single student at Bridgewater is to find your person. And you don't know who that person is going to be. It could be your faculty member, it could be a staff person, it could be a student who's been at Bridgewater for a long time. But one thing that I can tell you about the Bridgewater community is that we believe in each other. We believe in taking care of each other. And I am a first generation college student, and I want every single one of my students who is sitting in my first year writing class to graduate as close to as time as possible and feeling as fulfilled and rich and excited about their lives as possible. And that's a long-term process. And, you know, I have students that I've worked with from their freshman year to their senior year and beyond, because I became their person. And so that's my one piece of advice that you should tell your first year students. I see Jake shaking his head. Find your people, and they will help you get through these next 4 years for sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Lee. That was a great piece of advice. I'm going to actually pop over again to Jake, and I'm going to ask him a quick question. So as Corey kind of mentioned, she set some expectations with her student, but what are some expectations that you set up with your family members, Jake?
So I'm an only child. I come from a single parent household. I'm a first year college student. My mom didn't attend college. And so going into this, I was kind of going in blind because my mom doesn't know what college is like. And so the expectations we had, I definitely had a lot of independence coming because, like I said, my mom did not attend. She didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. But what we did kind of set up was that just having open communication, just feeling like my mom didn't like hover over me and kind of let me experience it. And she was there for me for emotional support with anything I needed and always supported me. But I kind of did it on my own, and we set up expectations of like, I would call her every night around 8 o'clock, or sometimes it would be a busy week. And so I'd call her every other day, let her know how my classes were going, like how my day was going, how things were going. And just kind of like the big expectations we had were just keeping communication, whether it be once a day we call or we text throughout the day or whatever. Or like when an update comes up in my life, like I would tell her. So definitely just communication, whether it be you kind of work it out with your student on like how much communication is best. Your student might want more, they might want less, you might want more, you might want less. So it's kind of working out how much works for in your relationship with them.
Thank you, Jake. We got a question in the chat specifically to Lee that said, what's the most challenging aspect for freshmen who take your writing course based on their feedback from over time?
So I can answer this fairly broadly. So one of my jobs is that I coordinate first year writing across the board. So I work with all of the faculty on that. And I've been here a long time. I've had a lot of experience with lots of sort of first year experiences. What I would say is the students struggle in every class, not just in my class, but in every class. And Jake, maybe you can back me up on this. Students aren't used to following a syllabus. They're used to their teacher in high school telling them this is due tomorrow or this is due next week. And so the student knows that that's the thing that's due. But in college, what was going to happen is your teacher is going to give you a syllabus on the first day of class and expect you to follow it. And if you show up the next day without the thing done and say, well, you didn't tell me, that faculty member is going to say, well, it was on the syllabus. And I recognize that there's a learning curve for about 3 weeks with my first year students where they're just not looking at the syllabus. But I make it a real point to make my students look at the syllabi, not just for my class, but for all of their classes, and fill out a planner. Because Jake's right, you have to start to be your own advocate when you come to college. And I feel like that is the thing my students are least prepared to do. They're super passive. And so from sort of an academic standpoint, in terms of how I think our first year students could be more successful and better adaptive, is if they take control of things, follow their syllabus, pay attention. And the other thing I will also say that I think students really struggle with, this is sort of nitty gritty, is reading. They don't love to read, and they sometimes think they don't have to read. And the unfortunate truth is, in some classes, you can get away with not reading. But in many classes, you have 3 tests. And if you didn't do the reading, you're going to fail the test. So those are hard lessons to learn. And some students figure it out really quickly, but some students have to do very badly before they actually figure it out. So I would say encourage your student to pay attention to the material they get from the faculty member, take ownership of it, and do the reading. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Corey, I'm going to go over to you really quick. What is the best piece of advice that you can give to new family members that are coming into Bridgewater as their role as a parent?
I would say the best piece of advice I would give is just knowing your child. I have 2 daughters and they're completely different, and they both lived on campus the first year. So it was new to me, them not living with me. And one of them would communicate a lot with me and tell me a lot, and the other one wouldn't. And so I would just, even if she didn't want to communicate too much, just even sending out a positive quote to them, just something like, I'm thinking of you, I love you, you can do it. It just, even if she didn't want to talk to me every day, but I just wanted to send her something, knowing that I'm thinking of her and I'm supporting her. And it was just something like that, just sending them, just even like a little red heart I would send her some days, just because to let her know I'm thinking of her. Just to keep those lines of communication open, and knowing that, they could call me if they need me, and they don't have to if they don't. But it is keeping those lines, like Jay said, the communication open with them, and they'll tell you as much as they want. And over time, they might tell you more as you go through the college experience, definitely.
I just want to add just to what Corey said real quick, and kind of what I said earlier too, is like, I know some of you, like my mom definitely wanted to talk every day. She wanted to call me at like 8 o'clock at night. We would talk about what went on during the day or whatever. And to be honest, sometimes I just didn't have enough to talk about, and so like that nightly call just wasn't doing it for me, and I didn't enjoy it. And I love my mother, but I just didn't, sometimes doing it nightly just wasn't my thing. And so I know some people may want to communicate every day, but sometimes if you do move it to every other day, and this is just based off if they want it less, but if you like do it every other day, or maybe like whatever you decide, you'll actually have more to talk about because there was more time in between the last time you talked. So that also going into college you might find that to be beneficial if you space it out a little bit more, because if you call every day, it might just be like, yeah, I went to class and I did this and I had lunch and I'm done. So like if you do spread it out a little bit, it might actually give you more to talk about in the times that you do talk to your students.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, Jake. Thank you. That's something actually, as I'm a BSU student as well, but that's something my mom and I do. We call every other day, and I update her about how if she's calling on a Thursday, I'll tell her how Wednesday and Thursday went. And it gives us something more to talk about. And she tells me what her past 2 days were like. And it gives me a little bit of my breathing room and a little bit of her breathing room as well. So that's a great piece of advice. Thank you, Jake. I'm going to actually open it up to our audience. Does anyone have a question that they like to chat or verbally ask? We have another like 40 minutes, so please feel free to ask anything that you'd like. Oh, looks like we actually have a question in the chat. What's the most important thing kids forget to bring to college? Anyone is more than welcome to take this question out of our campus partners. By all means, you can jump right in.
Well, the good thing is if they do forget anything, there's so many opportunities to find something on campus. So we have a bookstore on campus. We also, Bridgewater has surrounding like Walgreens, CVS, they're in walking distance. So Staples isn't too far away. I believe in the first couple weeks they used to have buses going out to different orientation would have buses going to different stores, Walmart. There's a lot of different places close by that they can get anything if they do forget anything.
One thing that I'm having a hard time actually thinking of something because, like Corey said, there are so many places near campus. If you do forget something, you have the opportunity to get it. But I will say something very important. Typically, if your student is living on campus, one like thing that they would always need is their Connect card, which is this. And I'll say that when I moved onto campus my freshman year, I drive from the Cape, so I drove an hour to campus, and I left my Connect card. And you can't do anything really without this, and it's $25 every time you need to get a new one. So definitely make sure your student. I have a little phone wallet that keeps my Connect card on it, so definitely make sure that they always have their Connect card on them, whether or not they're a commuter or a resident. They'll need their Connect card for different things. This is also what they use. There's a currency called Flex Dollars that we use, and that they can upload money to their Connect card and use this as almost like a debit card in different places on campus. And so everybody uses it. You need to get into certain buildings and things like that. So definitely make sure that they always remember, and just make sure they always have their Connect card on them, because I made the mistake of forgetting mine and had to buy another one the first day.
I can actually also say something to this as a BSU student. This might seem like the weirdest thing to forget, but something that my friends have consistently always forgot is their pillows. And it's because you're so distracted with everything else to bring to college. Some people get up the morning that they're going to move in or move back after Thanksgiving break, and they just leave their pillows on their bed. And I didn't think that was going to be a common item, but it's happened to multiple of my friends. So there's a little random thing to make sure you have your pillows with you before you leave home.
Honestly, I think it's up to every student. Everyone's going to forget something. It's inevitable. It's going to happen because you have so many things that are running through your mind the day of move-in day. I can tell you, I forgot jeans. I had all shorts, but I forgot to bring like 3 pairs of jeans. So my mom had to drive back down the day afterwards, and she brought me my jeans. But things happen. But as Corey said, there's a lot of really good resources around campus that are in walking distance, so your student can take. There's also shuttle buses that do drop off at locations on campus, and then from the shuttle buses, like the CVS is right behind our Hunt Hall Center, and right behind there is CVS. So like as you get off the bus, you can walk to Hunt and then walk behind to CVS. So it's really important. But another question that I saw is, how would you recommend parents support their freshmen due to COVID-related changes that it might affect their schedules or how they take classes, etc.? So I'm actually going to ask Corey and Lee to provide some advice, and then Jake, you can jump in as well. So anyone may start.
Corey, I have a lot of things to say, so I don't know if you do.
Go ahead, Lee, you can start.
Well, I think one thing that I would say is, as most of you know, we did transition to online classes at the end of spring semester. And one thing that I noticed is that it takes a certain amount of stamina to take classes online. It certainly takes some stamina to teach them, and I think it takes some stamina to take them. And so helping your student, this sounds so silly, but get enough rest and eat well and get up and move around. I went to see my chiropractor yesterday, and he said my hips were all crazy, and it's because, of course, I'm sitting in front of a computer for so many hours during the day recently. So helping them take care of themselves physically, reminding them to take care of themselves physically. I think a lot of first-year college students sort of like forget all the things about self-care that they maybe have their parents have been doing for them. And it's important, it's really important. The other thing I would say is I think this is true about the faculty at Bridgewater. We're trying to do the most innovative stuff we can do if we're teaching online. We don't want it to just be a replacement for face-to-face. Like, I'm really thinking about how can I make this the best experience possible for an incoming student? And I think we're coming up with some pretty good ideas, frankly. I've had a lot of interviews come, a lot of folks come into my class to do interviews, and that's really only been possible because of Zoom, because we've been having the opportunities to talk online. But encouraging students to take it seriously. If they're in an online setting for a class, or if they're in a face-to-face setting, it doesn't matter. You got to take this work seriously. You got to commit to it. And I think that helping our students to, remember to turn on their screen and unmute their voice when they're, I had a couple of students last semester who would like turn their video off and turn their voice off, and so I wouldn't have any. They could be making breakfast for all I knew. So helping our students to learn to be present, whether they're in a classroom or in an online setting, I think is one of the most effective ways that we can help them be successful in what is really an unprecedented learning experience.
Thank you, Lee. That was great. Corey?
Sure. I going off what Lee said too is like physically and mentally just getting that break away. If we are all online, is getting that break away from the computer all the time. I know my older daughter loved online courses. She had last semester all of her courses online, so it wasn't even a big switch to her. It was her last semester here, and she loved everything online. Where my younger daughter hated it when we first started it, and she got over that fact, but she kind of tried to rearrange. Set a schedule for herself, and that worked for her. When specific times she was supposed to be in the classroom, that's when she would go on and do her assignments, or she'd even like get up and go to the library, something different, just a different environment, somewhere that she could go to the library, and like getting up and walking around too, and getting away from the screen the whole time, and just engaging with other students as well, even if it's on a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, talking to them if you need to. Just getting someone else's opinion, and being healthy as well, just getting out there and exercising and eating too. I mean, just taking a walk for 10 minutes is a better, just getting away from that desktop if you need to for a little while.
Can I add one quick thing? So one thing that happened during the spring semester was that when classes went online, many of my students were essential workers, and they ramped up the number of hours they worked. And that proved to be problematic because there's only so many hours in the day. So, if you're doing online classes, it doesn't mean that some classes met synchronously, some didn't, but there's still work to be done. And so the idea that because you were suddenly online, you had what you thought was free time, I saw students overloading themselves with work hours, and I really understand why they do it. I really do. But it took a toll on their performance in the classes and then ultimately on their grades. So as parents, I think especially, I was first generation, and my parents were like, well, if you're not in school, why can't you work? And it's true, you can work. Most of our students work quite a lot. But remembering that school is a job that takes up a number of hours in a student's life, we have to be respectful of that and really support them. I think that can be tough, but we need to, especially in this time when we might be online for some of our classes.
I'd love to just jump in on that. Or Jake, you're probably going to say something very similar to me. But I was just going to say, even going past work, but just household things. I know when I first came home, it was, now that I'm home, I have free time. Let's go. Can you run errands for me? Can you do groceries for me? And it was kind of this balance of I'm home, but like I have class in 20 minutes, or I have to write an essay it's due in a couple hours. So it's not even just work, but just thinking about what additional demands are being put on the student now that they're in a different setting that they may have not had put on them previously.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say just because it's definitely a big adjustment from going to in-person classes to online. And just because your student may be home all the time now doesn't exactly mean that they're going to have time to do whatever chore you might throw at them or whatever task you might give them or anything like that. Because just because they're there during the day doesn't mean that they don't have classes or they don't have projects to work on or papers to write and different things like that. And so just because they're home doesn't mean that they are going to be fully available all the time. And then also another thing that I would say is I'm somebody who I cannot do work in like my bedroom because that is where all my distractions are, my TV, my Xbox, my phone, my just everything, all my distractions are in there. Because so I know like if I'm trying to do work in my room, like I know I can turn my TV on, I can start watching Netflix, I can put a game on, like I can do that kind of stuff. So I have to physically move myself into a different area. I kind of like made the dining room, like corner of the dining room, like my little work area. So definitely like if some things are virtual, I would definitely suggest having them that they are people that can do work in their room or things like that, but I'm just not. So I would suggest them finding an area in the house that can be like their designated work area. So when they're in that area, they know that they're in work mode, not sleep mode or play mode or anything like that. So that's just something I would suggest. And I think I had something else, but I can't think of it, so I'm gonna end it there.
One thing I'm going to add personally is something that my mom and I did this past semester is that she would be knowing I'd be working on an essay or I'd be having a test coming up. And it was kind of be like we were in high school again. She would help me study for my test, or she would proofread my essay. That's if I asked her to. So again, that is that open communication that Corey and Jake and Lee all mentioned, is that I'd be like, hey mom, do you want to take a look at this for me? Proofread it and tell me what you think. Because I'd be doing that with because I'm a student that lives on campus, I'd be doing that with my roommates and asking them, but because I didn't have that experience, I found a different outlook. So again, you need to have that open communication between each other, so you don't feel like you're hovering over them and being like, oh, are you getting that math assignment done? But you know your student also has a biology assignment, an English essay to write, and then has to read a history book. So just be conscious of that as well. Does anyone else have any other questions that they would like to ask? Please feel free to, you can unmute yourself or again, chat. We would love to answer any questions that you may have. So we got a question that said, any specific advice for commuter students? So if anyone would like to take that question, they're more than welcome to. I'm gonna actually see if Corey, do you have any advice? I don't know if your students were commuters or.
Yeah, they were living on campus for a semester, and then they became a commuter. And commuters, you know, their time on campus is limited. Tell them to get involved and ask questions, as Lee referred to. Ask questions with your professor. There's so many resources on campus, and I had to reiterate it to my children as well. But I mean, the Academic Achievement Center has tutoring that will help them. I mean, we have a career services office that not even just looking for a job, it will help you do mock interviews, and they'll assist you with your resume. We have an internship office. So let them seek out those things that are on campus. There are so many clubs and activities. I'm sure the orientation leaders could tell you numerous. Anything that you want to get involved in, you could get involved. So I mean, as a commuter, you can spend more time on campus and get involved in many different ways. And there's small things that they can do, and they might only want to do one or two things on campus, but utilizing those resources. And I know we have in my office, we have over 100 students that work in our office, and Lee had talked about finding that person. And Jake actually worked in our office as well. A lot of the time we end up mentoring our students as well, because we work so closely with them. And it might be someone that, if they have work on campus, just someone that they could reach out to and ask questions. We always tell our students that as well, that we work with. If you have any questions on anything, ask us, because if we don't have the answer, we're going to find the answer for you. I mean, the wellness center is another opportunity. The library, the gym. There's just so many resources on campus. So anything that you can think of, and anyone will assist you and help you find that way. I mean, like Lee said, we're all on campus. Like, we want everybody to succeed and walk across that stage in 4 years. That's our goal. That's our purpose here. So I work on commencement. It's one of my biggest events, and it's one of the proudest days on campus that we're all here. And that's what our main goal is, to get everybody across that stage. So reach out and ask as many questions as you can.
Yeah, I'm a total commencement junkie. I love commencement. I go to both of them. I go to grad commencement. I love it. I would also add, there's actually a lot of research about persistence in college that says that the more time students actually spend on a campus, even if they're just, work study is actually a really great way to spend time on campus. It increases the possibility of graduating exponentially. So finishing in a 4-year period or a 6-year period and actually graduating with a degree, being on campus, just being on campus increases your chances of completing that. There's quite a bit of research that says that. So I think one of the dangers for commuter students is that they come to campus and then they leave right after their classes are over. So if you can encourage your student to take a little bit of time, like all they have to do is like stay in the library for a couple of hours. It's a really wonderful way to get work done, and also to get to know people. As I used to run the undergraduate research program at Bridgewater State University. And one thing I found with commuters is that often they didn't find out about this remarkable opportunity on campus until it was nearly too late for them to participate. And so I agree with everything that Corey said about asking questions, getting involved, but I also just think hanging out on campus is one of the ways that you will feel like you're a part of this community, and you'll learn things from other students.
But if I can just add to one more thing. Oh, sorry, Jake. University Park. It's right in the middle of our campus. If you haven't been to our campus, kids hang out there all the time. It's an outdoor activity place that it's a great place to just hang out and socialize with other students. Go ahead,
I was
Jake,
just
sorry.
going to say, that's okay. I personally have never been a commuter. I've lived on campus every year, but I have a lot of friends who are commuters. And one thing that I'll say is, and Corey and Lee touched on this, but it's get involved. Get involved in any possible way that you can on campus, whether that be doing undergraduate research, whether that be getting an on-campus job, whether that be joining an intramural club or a team sport, or whether that be joining a different kind of clubs. There's like, I think over 90 something clubs on campus, or you could start your own club if you have enough students and a faculty member that would be willing to advise it. There, just any possible way, because like Lee said, just being on campus more makes you feel more connected to the university. And also, like, I would suggest talking to people in their classes, things like that, and becoming friends with them. So even if they can just get together to do homework or do things like that. And then also, I will say, like, I don't work for university events anymore, but my freshman year and my sophomore year I did. And that was honestly, getting a campus job is one of the best things that happened to me, because you actually, like, especially not to like plug university events, but working for university events, you actually get to learn so much about the campus, because you learn so much about the different event spaces on campus and different events that happen on campus and things like that. So I would definitely suggest getting a job on campus. That's a big way. Like, a lot of my friends got jobs on campus, and that's how we became friends, because we had the same job and things like that. So definitely working on campus, if it works in their schedule, and things like that, are a great way for commuters to kind of feel more of a sense of belonging and things like that.
Thank you. Also, another great piece of advice is last week we actually had the director of commuter student services. She was on, and she gave a lot of really good pieces of advice of how your commuter student can get involved, and what ways can they get involved, and what are resources that commuter students can look out to. So if you would love to rewatch that was from last week. And her name is Shelley Kenston. So you can always look her up in the BSU directory and email her, and she'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have as well. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, I want to be conscious of our campus partners' times. I'm going to ask them all to give one piece of advice that they would give to new families and students coming into Bridgewater. And then Michelle and I will stay on if you have any other personal questions that you'd like to ask. So again, anyone's more than open to answer it from our campus partners.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go first because I actually have to go to another meeting. But the one thing that I would say, So I do this project in my first year writing class where I have a new first year student interview a graduated Bridgewater State University alum. And so I have alums that graduated 2 years ago, but I also have alums that graduated 20 years ago. So it's a wide range. And the one thing that I notice is the difference between a first year student and a graduated student is A, how much they love Bridgewater, and B, how passionate they are about the thing that they're doing. And the one piece of advice is encourage your student to care about things. I get it is cooler to look like you don't care about anything. I totally get that. But encourage them to find things that they care about and to throw themselves into it wholeheartedly. They will have a better experience at Bridgewater than if they try and skate through unscathed, if they try to just check boxes and get through their day. I know that Bridgewater can be a truly transformative experience for the students who attend, but much depends on whether or not they commit to the experience of it. And so that would be my advice. Encourage your student to be passionate and to care, and they will find support at this institution, and they will, the sky's the limit, honest to God, sky's the limit. Go BSU. Thanks for letting me be a part of this, and anyone can contact me. I know New Student and Family Programs can give you my email, but I am going to click out so I can go to my next meeting. And thanks to all my co-presenters.
Bye, Lee.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
I just want to jump in and just give kind of my 2 cents on that question real quick. I completely agree with Lee in kind of encouraging your student to care about things in their time here, and definitely trying to help them kind of find that thing that they care about. For me personally, that thing was orientation. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but like Megan and Michelle, I am also a student orientation coordinator outside of just being a student. I started as an orientation leader a few years ago, and that's just been like the #1 thing that I have loved about BSU. I love orientation. I love helping new students. I love helping families, and like especially because it's such a big transition going from high school to college, especially like now with everything going on, like it is a big jump, and so that's just something I'm very passionate about. And so just finding something at the university that they're passionate about can really, really help them. So yeah, I agree with that. And then also I saw there was a question in the chat. I want to answer that before we end. From Beth. She said, in picking classes for first time, my daughter picked 3 classes in a row. Have the students found this challenging, or would it be better to space them out? I think, again, it's all up to your student to kind of find that out for themselves. I personally like to have my classes close together. So the way Bridgewater does their classes is they have Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, and they have Tuesday, Thursday classes, and then they have some classes that meet once a week. A lot of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes are shorter, and they can be put like back to back. So like, say you have a class from 9 to 10, then 10 to 11, then 11 to 12. I personally like doing it. I wouldn't do it more than 3 classes in a row, but I personally like that because you get it all done in the morning or in the afternoon, but it's all in one chunk, and then you're done for the rest of the day. And then you would only have a class or 2 on the other, like Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's a problem to do 3 in a row. Some people, they like to space it out more, which is fine too, but it's all about, like that first semester, it's definitely the time where they're going to figure out what they like. It's all about kind of a little bit in the beginning, it's about trial and error, kind of figuring out, do I like having them bam, 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 like no break, or do I like having one, then having an hour break, having another, then having an hour break? That does prolong their day. They might be fine with that. I personally don't like that because I like to be done early. So again, I would just kind of let them explore what they liked this first semester, see if it worked for them, see if it could have worked better, and then kind of they'll know where to go from kind of going from there. So I hope that kind of helps, but then I will go to Corey to answer Megan's original question.
So one piece of advice I think that I would probably give is to utilize their time as best as they can. I know going from a high school environment where you're at school from 7 in the morning till like 2, 2:30 in the afternoon. It's pretty, you're on a set schedule. When you go off to college now, you've created like your schedule for 5 different classes, 4 or 5 different classes, but they might not be all in a row, or they may be. And utilizing the time to carve out some time or go to the library, or meet with a professor. It's coming up with a little schedule themselves. I know one of liked her classes all in the morning. She liked the 8 o'clock, maybe a break in between, but she spent the whole afternoon at the library. She didn't like the library. She'd like to do everything at home or in her environment with her friends. So it's just finding out your academic life.
Corey, I think you're breaking up on us. I don't know if it's my
You're
Wi-Fi.
on campus and finding that schedule that's going to work for you. You're on campus and finding that. Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I don't know. Again, that was just my Wi-Fi connection. Just so if you could repeat
Can you hear
yourself.
me?
Yes. Can you repeat yourself starting after the library? That would be fantastic.
Oh, sure. Just that, yeah, I think it's managing their time. They're not used to having all this free time, and it's trying to create a schedule for yourself that's going to work for you. And every day might not be the same, because you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule and a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. But I know between my children and the students that work with me as well, they come into that schedule, and they might work 1 to 3 in the afternoon, and then from 3 to 5 they go and do their classwork, and then they meet their friends for dinner at 5, and maybe go back to some classwork later. But it's carving out that time where you are making that time to make those connections on campus, as well as keeping up with your academic, all the presentations or writings or anything you may be doing. It's just finding that time and creating that time that you're not just going back to your room and just lounging around and not getting involved. So there's just so much on campus. I know one student that comes to mind that I know, she's on the go all the time, but she likes that, and that's what she does. She gets up in the morning, and I think she has 2 or 3 jobs, probably 2 jobs on campus that I know of. But she has a set schedule, and that's what her works for her. As I said, my younger daughter, it worked for her to go to the library afternoon, and about 3 hours, and she just liked to get a lot of her work done then. Where my older daughter would come home and maybe exercise or lounge around for a little bit and do all their studies in the evening. But it's just finding that time of what's going to work for you.
Awesome.
I just want to add one thing and echo Corey on something you said very quickly that I'd like to emphasize. Leave a space for lunch in your schedule. If your students booking themselves over lunch, that for me was my hardest transition, because when you think like, oh, well, I went to high school and I was in school from 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. so I can do that with my classes, I at least forgot that the school sketched out a time for me to have food. And my first semester, I blocked all my Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes over lunch. And I was not happy about that later in the semester. So having 3 classes in a row isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would just make sure that there's meal times either before or after, and make sure it's not covering like breakfast and lunch. So that would be one way to like balance that.
And I will just say, it might be a lot to think of right now, but your student will get the hang of it very quickly. They're gonna figure out what they liked and what they didn't. They're gonna figure out if they took an 8 a.m. and they could get up early and they liked it, or they're gonna figure out if maybe an 8 a.m. is not the best for them. They're gonna figure out if they liked an afternoon class or if they didn't. So this first semester, they're gonna experiment on what kind of schedule they like, and that's completely fine. Like they are going to learn from it, and so I wouldn't be too worried if they get a schedule now and they're not a huge fan of it, because they can change the way they do this schedule the next semester. It's not how it's going to be all 4 years, and that they kind of have wiggle room. So just kind of let them know that.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for answering that question. I appreciate it. Again, to be conscious of time, does anyone have any last minute questions that they would like to have answered, or just anything they want to vocalize? We're here to be your support systems. We're here to help you out. So please feel free to share anything that's on your mind. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to have our campus partners sign off, again, to be conscious of their time. Michelle and I will stay on for the next couple of minutes. But thank you everyone so much for attending this Q&A session. We do have them going on for the rest of the summer, so please feel free to check out the orientation website under the family section. There's more coming up, and we look forward to seeing you all. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and have a great week.
Thank you, Megan and Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.